Chris Black, representing Joseph Black & Sons, runs cattle and horses on public land in the rugged Big Springs allotment located on the breaks of the Owyhee River in southern Idaho. In 1993, Chris changed management to limit the duration of grazing and promote regrowth and recovery after each grazing event.
Because I've broke that whole 90,000 acre area up into 20 some odd paddocks, or imaginary paddocks, so to speak, and I move those cattle through those imaginary paddocks, herding them, what I'm doing actually is taking them into an area for a short time. That allows for that plant to be grazed, but then to meet the recovery needs that it has. The enemy to a good allotment is a lot of bare ground.
He realized that there was a lot higher public expectations. He realized that people would come out and be concerned about how it looked. And instead of waiting to be forced to change, he tried to figure out what he could do with the tools at his command.
The essence of a good plan is how flexible you are in being able to change it. In dealing with biology and the environment, you have to.
In addition to intensively managing the grazing on the Big Springs allotment, Chris also conducted monitoring studies to document the conditions and changes that were occurring.
Monitoring is a good thing. What it does, when you first start doing it, what it does is it teaches you about the land. And that's the biggest benefit you can get from monitoring when you first start doing it. It teaches you what to look for and what's going on. It makes you look at the ground and see what's going on. That's the biggest benefit when you first start. The next benefit comes is, if you keep doing it, is when you need to see where you've been. Monitoring isn't the whole point of what I do. Monitoring is just one of those things to do to make me a better manager.
So he went out and retook all his pictures, he supplied his cover point information, and we were able to incorporate it in our assessment. But beyond that, we had some different viewpoints on the team that we weren't able to resolve without the assistance of his input.
Because I wanted to put my sites in close in to reservoirs and within a reasonable distance to reservoirs, most of them within less than a quarter of a mile or even less. And I put those in on purpose because I wanted to see what I was doing in those particular areas. Those areas were our sore spots at this time, and I wanted to see the improvement there.
This monitoring indicated that positive changes were occurring. The allotment where Chris manages his livestock is dominated by native vegetation, and few invasive species can be found. Chris observed more productivity and more ground cover, resulting in improved watershed conditions.
Well, I've seen the changes all over. What I've seen is the plant spacings have become tighter on the uplands, especially in around those reservoir sources and sources of water and things. Those plant spacings have become tighter. The plants are lusher. It's for the most part Idaho fescue, blue bunch wheatgrass, but we have an enormous amount of forbs in our complex, which support a lot of wildlife, sage-grouse and everything else.
The riparian areas look good. The sites that are preferred for grazing, particularly the big sagebrush sites, look good. He's done a very good job of providing better management for the areas that tend to be preferentially grazed.
These resource improvements significantly benefit wildlife habitat and wildlife populations.
Flying over this country in the spring, looking for sage-grouse leks, you just see antelopes sprinkled everywhere. And it's because it's got a lot of the wildflowers, the forbs that the antelope like to eat. And those wildflowers are also really good for the sage-grouse in the spring. And other places where I've been monitoring, we've had declining numbers of sage-grouse, but they've maintained in this Big Springs allotment. But Chris's stuff, 2 weeks after his cows left, looked like nobody had ever been there. And I was impressed by that. And those are regionally significant summering grounds. Sage-grouse from all over come into this country to summer. And he leaves them in good shape. Yeah, there's bighorn sheep. Probably one of the biggest herds of California bighorn sheep in the nation are at the southern end of Chris's allotment, where Battle Creek, the Owyhee River, and Deep Creek are. And then spotted frogs is another species that is of concern. There's potential to list them as endangered. They live where you think frogs live, in little pools and slow-moving creeks, and they're in this allotment in Big Springs and in this northern stuff that Chris takes care of.
The BLM has a responsibility to manage for multiple uses. By managing for sustainable use, future generations will enjoy and use these lands as well. Many of our partners help us attain those goals, but few are as effective as Chris Black.
And when they take the initiative before you ever have to say anything, and are out there observing, paying attention, with the intention of making things better, that's what's best for the land.
The public expects to have a good range, range that's grazed well and done well. And I think that's what I try to provide.
Well, what we're hoping to do, I think, is maintain the long-term productivity of the land for future generations. That's what the BLM's about.
For his leadership, hard work, and dedication to improved rangeland management, the Bureau of Land Management is proud to present the 2008 Rangeland Stewardship Award to Chris Black.